Before we begin, a quick heads up. This episode may contain some strong language, mature themes, and conversations about many difficult topics. We like to keep it real around here, so listener discretion is advised. But thank you for listening. Now, on to our show. Welcome to the Sip Saga Society, where we cover histories, mysteries, and just any story worth telling. Every week, Karina, Randy, Greg, and now Christina, yay! Cover a year in time while slowly traumatizing each other along the way. Part one was covered by Randy. And Randy, what did you cover?
We just got done talking about the first French woman, Jean Beret, who circumnavigated the globe and the wild life she led up until that point. So, if you haven't listened to it, as soon as you're done with this episode, go back. You're gonna want to.
You're really missing out if you haven't. But now it's time to talk about white men, so many white men, and most importantly, their names. I'm just reminding everyone I have a drinking game. I put it together. It's just one thing. If I say the word Lord, you drink. That's it. I have only a little bit of pink lemonade left, so
Babies
Are
drink
we
too.
actually?
yeah, the baby has to drink too. No, I'm just
Babies
kidding.
drink too.
The baby is 2 months
I wish
old.
I could see her face. She said,
She's like, these are your friends.
For everyone, I can't see anything, but when Christina did that face, all I saw were the whites of her eyes. It was terrifying.
So, the American Revolution was revolutionary, and this sounds really redundant, but you have to stay with me. Although different European countries had colonies, and we've talked about it extensively, Europe discovered a new piece of property and they were like, there's so much stuff here. And they came over and they tried putting little flags and everything they could put. And then they started taking people. We've talked about it extensively. But never had, and like people had fought and rioted and tried to find their freedom. But nobody had really fully overthrown another, like, and created a whole other country from these colonies. Within the next 100 years after the American Revolution, France, Spain, and Portugal all lost pieces, if not all, of their colonial empires through various rebellions. Long live the revolution. Anyway, and if you have, that's another shout out to an episode. If you haven't listened to those episodes, the history of Haiti, and we talk about that revolution, which is pretty much following this one. But the beginning of the Revolutionary War came with tensions from the last war. And we also talk about that extensively in our episodes on the Seven Years' War or the French and Indian War. There's context to the context. So, as we have discussed previously, the Seven Years' War was a large financial burden on the British Empire. The French were gone. Yay! But now there was a bill to pay. And in 1765, the Stamp Act was put into place to tax paper goods and hopefully make up a third of what was spent during the war. Before the Seven Years' War, the colonies cost the British Empire £110,000 annually. Today, this would be approximately, I'm not going to do the whole number, it's like £20 million. After they won the war, they gained more space, so they needed more soldiers to protect those spaces and maintain their made up lines. And they also had this giant bill to pay because they had to spend all that money fighting in this war. The British price to protect the region increased to 3 times the amount that they had previously had to pay. This was not even adding that million spent on that war. But the British quickly realized they needed more money. And the war alone had increased their debt from 74 million in 1756 to 133 million during the war. They really were down bad. The British were demanding too much mostly because they were demanding anything at all. Up to this point, the British mostly stayed out of the colony's business. most importantly, they left their money alone. For the most part, it was like they had these pieces of land, they sent the people over there, and all of these colonies are different entities. They're all doing their own separate little things. Like they interact with each other, but they all have separate militias, separate little governments, separate rules, and separate negotiations and business with the British Empire. The British protected the colonies and they took care of them, but it was mostly that they took their import and export taxes on goods, but no other revenue. They were just like, and like, once again, they had individual contracts with everybody, but the British Empire were benefiting from these goods that they were getting, as well as the money that was being made in the colonies. But they needed money to pay for the war. So the sugar tax and then the stamp tax were were put into place. So we're taxing sugar, then we're taxing all the paper goods. And people are starting to get irritated. And we do go more in depth into our previous 7 episodes about those things and about how freedom for enslaved people in Britain might have come into play into some of these tensions. The colonists thought that the British would win their war and just go. They were like, okay, they won the war. We have more land. Yay. Go home. Leave us alone. Like they wanted things to go back to normal. And there was protest. The stamp tax really got people riled up. The belief was that they had no place in British Parliament, so the British had no claim to their money. But up to this point, they hadn't been really taxed to this extent as like a whole entity. So they were like, what are you talking about? We don't even have a place in the British Parliament. We're not even part of the of Britain, so we shouldn't have to be taxed like we belong to you. It was historically unknown and thus unconstitutional, according to Carl Degler, author of Out of Our Past, The Forces That Shaped Modern America. The British at this point had waited too long to enforce any type of control over the colonists. Truly, they were 13 separate colonies with their own rules and cultures amongst them, but still on the same side of the on this vast ocean. So like this is the 1700s. It takes so long to get literally anywhere. Even just driving down the street is going to take a long time because you're walking or taking a horse or taking a boat. Like it takes a long time to get anywhere. So really they're just on their own over the ocean getting letters from this guy who's pissed off at them. Who are you to tell me what to do? The colonists didn't really consider themselves British. At this point, it's been a while since we've just started landing and putting these little settlements down. It's a long time from Jamestown. These are cities. These are people who have been born here and lived here. This is their home. This is the only world they know. The English saw the colonists as part of the empire, while, oh, I scrolled too fast, while the colonists considered themselves more American than displaced Englishmen. Thomas Jefferson said as much in his summary view of the rights of British America. You are surrounded by British counselors. You have no minister of American affairs because you have none taken from us. So it's just people who don't know us talking about us and making rules about us, even though they aren't even from here. The British Lord Hillsborough informed the colonial, did you hear that? Lord, I'm watching. Lord Hillsborough informed the colonial government that the cabinet entertained no design to propose to Parliament to lay any further taxes on America for the purpose of taxing revenue. So they were like, "We're done. We're not gonna tax you anymore." But by this point, it's just way too late. I think people wanted to stay intact with the mother country. They didn't really want to change things, and they didn't really want to run off. But England was literally doing the thing that they were scared of. They were like, we're worried that they're going to try to take away our rights. And taxing us is the beginning of that infringement. And what they do is they continue to violate their rights and piss them off further. England was a court of wealth, power, and also corruption. That's the way that the colonists viewed it, leading a lot of people to be suspicious of the British Empire. But for the most part, the people rioted against these very reasonable taxes, and the crown were kind of cool with it. They didn't do much. They did send more soldiers, but they were just kind of like, okay, okay, okay. Until the Boston Tea Party. The Boston Tea Party pissed people off. Like that was the line. John Adams wrote in his diary the day after the Boston Tea Party that what measures will the ministry take in consequence of this? Will they resent it? Will they dare to resent it? Will they punish us? How? By quartering troops upon us? By annulling our charter? By laying on more duties? By restraining our trade? By sacrifice of individuals? Or how? So it wasn't like they did this without knowing, well, what the consequences could be. But they still did it because they needed to send this message. So one of the things that I do want to mention right now, because I've decided to go on a spree of mentioning previous episodes we've recorded and things that are coming up. This quote comes from John Adams' diary. And we have talked previously and at length about how you have to read through people's diaries to get historical information. And we do a little deep dive on Greg's book research, and that was fun. And I will put that in the episode notes. So if you're interested in learning about that, we have episodes coming out.
I was working on that today, so
It's real.
it is. I was reading shitty handwriting. I'll show you all an example of what I was reading later in the group chat.
Every time I see them, I'm like,
You
that's
have
just
to hit a
scribbles.
flow state with that, right? Like that's, I feel like you have to just set
I
aside
think,
hours to just really get into a flow state with that.
So I
like, do
have
you
about
start
like
recognizing?
no, you definitely like get locked in and like better understand people's handwriting, but it's here, I'll just go ahead and send it just because then it'll be weird out of context. But I was reading a bunch of letters that his brother sent to him today, and every single fucking member of this family has terrible handwriting and it's all terrible in its own way. So like I showed you all the example of like the guy I'm Stephen Williams, like his handwriting, but his brothers, his dad, all of them have shitty handwriting.
Yeah, that's like the epitome of like chicken scratch. I feel like when people say that.
That's not even, that's like, it's so splotchy.
It's
So
like
Yeah.
the concept. It's, you know what? The LaCroix of writing.
he
It's
puts
like the
The
these
concept
random
of the
gaps
concept,
words.
in
the
between
concept
things
of writing.
sometimes that like really
Hmm.
throws me off. Like that
Yeah.
was what I was struggling with today, where I was like, what the fuck? Because like some words are really easy to make out, you
Hmm.
know? I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, like whatever, like the very beginning, you know, what does that say? Endeavored to get, but then there's these gaps in between letters. That's really weird. I don't know why he does that.
Yeah.
Who can understand the ways of
Oh
a
my, that's on purpose?
Yeah. No,
Randy?
like that's unique to his handwriting. Like I can tell whenever it's a letter from Warham because like it's
It's like having a stutter in handwriting.
yeah, like I mean there's like, it'll be like
I
had,
hate, I'm
but you
sorry,
like
I don't mean if that's offensive. I
okay.
don't mean it offensively, but it does, it's like a da-da,
Well, it's like a
like a
pattern of
beat.
speech. It's like a pattern of
Yeah.
Yeah.
writing.
Yeah, it's weird because it's like it's kind of cursive but kind of not too, which I get because that's how
Yeah.
I write
I was
normally.
like, that's me. I'm
My
half and
handwriting is
half.
terrible, but like it's a weird sort of
Mine's
like
nice.
sometimes the letters connect and sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
But granted, he's also writing with a quill, so I can't like give him that much like grief about it, because mine would be
Yeah.
even worse.
Same.
My hardest thing, L's, I write them two different ways, and sometimes I would write them two different ways in the same word, and that one does drive people crazy, but it depends on what letter it's coming off of, which L I do. That's what determines it for me.
He does some things where a lot of people do it at this time where like if you have two S's together, you do this weird like F looking S and then a normal cursive S because that's a thing that's in print sometimes too.
I think what's crazy is the more that I look at it, I feel like the more words I recognize. But I feel like if I looked at it too long, then my eyes would start crossing.
Yeah. So I kind of set a goal to look at like about 10 to 15 per day, and then I should be done with all of the letters I need to read in a few months. So I have
So
about like,
casual, Greg.
well, no, I have about I did like some rough math because I'm trying to figure out how close I am to being done, and I'm like, it's about 500 letters between different archives that I still need to go through.
Only a few months. It'll be fine. You'll
Yeah.
make it, Greg.
Well,
You're
but
a
I can't
survivor.
sit there all day and do that because I would go crazy. I did it for a little bit, and then I would like get up and do something else, and then go back and
I feel like you would see it
do
in
a
your
few more.
sleep.
I'm just like trying to read made up letters in my sleep.
It's like the Queen's Gambit. You're you're deciphering. Anyway. Okay. So the Boston Tea Party happens, and we're all left wondering, what will Mom do about this tantrum we've thrown?
I love that you're calling them mom and I called them dad last time. I was like, Daddy came and slapped your hand in the Mason Dixon episode. And now you're like, we're in trouble with mom.
The parents are here. Okay, so now it's 1773, and the mail takes time. And King George III hears the news on January 19th, 1774. So it's like a long time before he's like, oh shit. And he took it as a temporary setback. He was like, it happens. And then he actually gets the reports of what actually occurred. Govern Governor, what the hell was that pronunciation? Anyway, Governor Thomas Hutchinson, Boston born and a staunch loyalist, sent his official report and also a report from the admiral reporting that John Hancock and Samuel Adams were ringleaders in this Boston Tea Party. They also sent a report from Colonel Leslie asking for more soldiers to maintain the control in Boston. So they're like, it's getting crazy over here. Benjamin Franklin was then asked to appear in front of the British Privy Council on January 29th in 1774, and he was interviewed by the solicitor and also General Lord Wedderburn. This is the name that made me be like, what even is this name? And then I said, what is it with the white people calling themselves Lord? But also, really, Lord Wedderburn, I didn't even type it that time, Greg. I just said it because I wanted to see it.
I missed one of them.
Yeah, I'm keeping up. It's like
Greg, I
three or
was like,
four.
Greg's been on it.
So Benjamin Franklin's at this council, and he's the general. You're welcome, Greg. Is like attacking Benjamin Franklin, and he's accusing him of leaking letters written by the colonial governor Thomas Hutchinson. They're accusing Benjamin Franklin of releasing these letters because in the letters, the governor Thomas Hutchinson is advising England on how to deal with the rebellion. And he is sending these letters before the Tea Party. It's not even in response to the Tea Party yet. It's not even the letters that he sent. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, this is the reason the people got mad because they're like, you were telling him to send soldiers to do this. What the fuck is that? You're not on our side. And the council believed that that was causing more civil unrest, which maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Maybe don't cause us to have unrest in the first place. Franklin shared the letters with some friends in Boston who then published them, which may have led to some hostility. After Franklin was interrogated, the cabinet made sure to take steps to secure the dependence of colonies on the mother country. That is a direct quote. They were like, we have to make sure that they need us and only us. So this is a healthy relationship. The British decide that we really need to punish this unruly child we have, and we need to make an example of them. And they decided not to try anyone for treason because the witnesses wouldn't name names, so it made it a little hard. And also there was no hard evidence. Like they tried. They did everything they could, but as the more research they did and the more hunting down, and they tried to pin this on like the people that they knew were involved, like John Hancock and Samuel Adams, but they didn't have enough to fully arrest them. So they were like, we can't
Yeah.
really do this yet.
There's knowing and then there's proving.
Right, exactly. Those are two different things. The public in Britain were demanding a response to the Boston Tea Party drama. And I didn't realize like people were pissed. So the cabinet decided to punish the entire town of Boston and make an example of them. Lord Chancellor Aspley said they need to, quote, mark out Boston, separate that town from the rest of the delinquents. And then the Boston Massacre happens on March 5th in 1770, 74, I'm assuming. And they're like, damn, they just keep killing people. And we did talk about the Boston Massacre in our previous episode as well. So Mom reacts with the coercive acts. We close the port of Boston. This was ordered in Parliament until the town had repaid the East India Company for the tea that they got rid of. It was passed on March 25th, 1774, and it went into effect on June 1st of that year. Then they passed the Massachusetts Government Act, restricting town meetings, and all positions on the governor's council were appointed by the British government. So now it's only our people and only our council. Then we had the Administration of Justice Act, making British officials immune to criminal prosecution in Massachusetts, allowing them to continue to kill without consequences like they already had during the Boston Massacre. Then there's the Quartering Act. The colonists were then required to house British soldiers in their own home if needed. So they're cutting them off. They're like forcing everybody to move in with British soldiers if needed. That would piss me off if they're like, we're just sending these guys in. They could be anybody. But not everyone in Parliament agreed to these rules, and it was suggested that maybe get rid of the tea tax if they were going to add all of these new punishments to Boston. Like maybe get rid of something in if you're going to give them all of these punishments to not add too much fuel
I
to the
love that they were
fire.
like, let's give in on the thing that they were obviously upset about, but we still have to slap their hand, is what
They're
you're
so
saying.
stupid. Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. They were like, we still have to show them we're boss. While these were being discussed, Edmund Burke gave a speech of the House in the House of Commons where he asked Parliament, reflect how you are to govern a people who think they ought to be free and think they are not. Your scheme yields no revenue. It yields nothing but discontent, disorder, and disobedience. Then Lord North responded by declaring that repealing the Tea Act wouldn't stop the resistance and only reward Boston for its unlawful behavior. So Parliament rejected the motion of cutting the tax. They left it as it was. The colonists responded to all of these measures as one does, with political resistance. Instead of isolating Boston, it caused the rest of the state and the other colonies to stand up for Boston. They were like, the fuck are you doing? The other colonies started sending aid to Boston to help them out until their port opened up again. Port. Anywho, Massachusetts residents ended up forcing the royal counselors to resign. And how? That was my question, Greg. How did they force the counselors to resign? How did they get rid of these people? And was it tarring and feathering?
I mean, I don't know about tarring and feathering specifically, but
Jesus, I hope not.
but
I
like,
hope not.
I mean, they do tar and feather the tax collectors, right? Like that's a thing during like the Stamp Act. Um, but like they basically like loot, ransack, demolish elite homes. Like the governor's home gets ransacked and like his wine cellar gets raided and stuff. So like Boston's like there's a lot of like people be doing stuff in Boston, like they're like not content to just sit around, but they're gonna go like attack people and steal their shit, basically.
So they did not take any of this lightly, as they shouldn't.
No, no, not at all.
And there were protests throughout the colonies as well. It wasn't just like they just let Boston sit in their own mess. They were like, what the fuck is that? And they just burned British tea in public demonstrations. And I thought that was funny and also petty. By November in 1774, King George wrote in a letter, the New England governments are in a state of rebellions. Below must be decided whether they are to be subject to this country or independent. And one of the quotes I found amongst my books from George Washington, and we have talked about this at length. Most people were not like, let's fight, let's separate. They just wanted to go back. And George Washington to the Continental Congress was like, we're not trying to be separate in 1774. That's one of the quotes that. And then all of this stuff happens, and then by November, they're obviously going to war. They're just fighting already. And England won't stop attacking them? On January 27th in 1775, General Gage was ordered to arrest and imprison the members of the Provincial Congress and use any force necessary to suppress the rebellion. Then, on April 19th, 1775, Gage sent his troops to Concord to destroy the ammunition that the colonists had collected. Obviously, if the government has continued to infringe upon your rights and they start coming for the one thing you have to protect yourself, you're not going to let them take it from you? So they had a
It
fight.
does seem like a very galvanizing situation.
I feel like every turn there was just more fuel added. This is a very, I don't know. Anyway, and that's the beginning of our battle, guys.
That's wild. It's crazy because I think I said this in an episode. I don't remember what episode, but an episode before where with you saying that, like you're like when they take away what they have like to protect themselves. I literally like me and my husband had a conversation and I didn't realize that the Second Amendment, Greg and Rudy, right to bear arms, whatever, right? I didn't
Hmm.
realize, like, I thought it was just about generally, right? Because for me, I don't deep dive into too much stuff. So I was like, oh, it's like people want their guns, whatever, right? That's just how I saw it at face value. And then my husband was like, no, like, it's to protect yourself in case the government turns on you. And I was like, what?
Yeah, the right to form militias
Yeah.
and
And I
Mhm.
was
yeah.
like, that's why, because like in my head, like living in this bubble, right, of like how you learn things in school or lack thereof, I guess, depending, you know what I mean, like because they can only
Hmm.
teach us so much. I was just like, oh, like I just thought it was like, you have like you can own a gun, that's cool, like yeah, I guess you don't want that taken away, and I didn't realize the importance of it, or like like
Hmm.
how bad
Hmm.
things
Yeah.
could turn or could
It's definitely
happen.
like a lot less about actually owning a gun versus like the
Right.
principle of it, you know?
Yeah. And like I didn't realize it was that deep. And it really is. Like that's crazy to me because I'm like, I mean, in a perfect world, that wouldn't happen, but it's there for a
Yeah,
reason. And I'm gonna leave it at that.
Mhm.
It's there for a reason.
I have like a script. What?
that pause was just so pregnant. Please go.
Well, I had to burp because I have a carbonated beverage. My
Oh
bad,
my God,
Randy.
I love
And I
that.
was
I
like,
was
"Can
just
I breathe, ma'am?"
hanging. Can I breathe? Can I breathe?
I'm going to be fully transparent, and Randy has did not disclose this, but like I have I'm doing the H. pylori treatment with so I'm taking a bunch of
Mm,
antibiotics and it's
Oh
like the
man.
worst. It makes you so like gassy.
mine
I've heard
makes
it's pretty
me,
rough.
I get so nauseous on antibiotics,
But Randy, but
depending on
you
which ones.
it's amoxicillin and Flagyl. I mean, I've been so nauseous for the last like 2 years, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking
Hmm.
this is why I was so nauseous.
Did they do the
Yeah,
test to have you breathe
No,
and like
they
do
took it
the
during my endoscopy. They took a chunk from
oh.
me.
they took they took a biopsy, is what
They
that's
took my
called.
chunks. Anyway, and yeah, so we're trying that to see if it, because otherwise the next step is to do surgery to tighten the my stomach so it doesn't leak out. Gross. Those are the options. So I'm hoping this works.
Well, I hope the
Yeah.
antibiotics work.
Yeah, because I don't want to have surgery. It's gonna freak me out.
Yeah.
You did well
Anywho,
the last time, though.
yeah, I didn't panic. I didn't
It's
die
more than
of
some of
whatever
us.
fever.
More than some of us can manage.
That's true. Okay, I write a script and also Randy, like we've discussed at length, I amongst the four of us, like, what we kind of want to talk about and like what things we want to bring up in our storytelling and in our discussions, right? Like what is important to us as a podcast. And one of the things is like, how is this applicable today? And I think one of the other things I've been really thinking about is in what place does history have in today's culture and today's entertainment and today's education? And one of the big things is learning what has happened so we don't repeat things again and learning what people have done when the same things that they are going through have happened to them. Like if we're all
Mhm.
going through something really difficult, it's nice to see when other people have succeeded against oppression. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. But I'm sure we'll say more. But and it just surprised me how a lot of this was relevant to today and interest. And also, I felt like the colonists were real petty at the beginning. I was like, you guys are being real extra. You don't have to do anything else but pay a little bit of taxes for something that is going to benefit you
Yeah.
ultimately.
Mhm.
And then
Well,
anyway, go Randy.
I was just gonna say, I think, and I lost it. It'll come back. Sorry. It's just like dumped right on out. Mm-mm.
Anyway, it was a lot of really surprising stuff. But the book is giant, so it'll be fun to figure out where this goes.
Oh, I remember now. I think the other major reason why we want to tell these stories, though, and to remind people about this stuff is that so you can't be lied to, right? Like
Right.
a lot of this is about so you guys know the truth about what's going on. And when people like try to paint such a rosy color whitewashed picture of what was happening during these times, like they were not sunshine and roses. It was gory and graphic and, you know, revolutions are made on blood. So, let's remember that. It's so significant right now. I'm listening to the fireworks. I'm just like thinking about all of this and I'm like, this is crazy.
Well, and that's one of the things is that in my next 1775 part, I really want to talk about people of color and what this war amongst white people meant for the people of color living in this area and under white people control. Because that's important too, and we don't talk about that. But and it's hard because you can't talk about that without talking about why the fighting was necessary and what brought that on in the first place.
Yeah, and that's important. It's like I think having those voices that you don't always see in like the big patriotic narratives is important. I was gonna ask because this is a little bit later, but it's relevant because the 4th is coming up in a couple of days. But like, have y'all any of y'all read Frederick Douglass's speech about the 4th of July?
No, I have not. But also let us know, Greg.
It's a good one. Like I have my students read a chunk of it because it's one of those like, I mean, Douglas is an abolitionist, right? And like
Hmm.
he's writing, I can't remember the exact date. It would have been probably like the 1830s or 40s or whatever. And like he's basically brought to this big patriotic celebration and the abolitionists are putting this event on and they want Frederick Douglass, like the leading black face of the abolitionist movement, to talk and give a speech on the 4th of July. And he gives this speech that just really kind of like rips the whole thing apart. Like, like there's this line like like what then is the 4th of July? And he goes on, so it's like how do you think that black people who are in slavery feel when y'all are celebrating freedom and how every man deserves to be free? Like it's just like it's not patriotic and like wave the flag around at all. It's very critical. But it's a good one. I would say like, in the couple days leading up to that, just when you want to think about like how people like have kept activism alive, like in Douglas's time it was fighting slavery, like it's a good speech to read on the 4th.
Any last thoughts before we go, everybody? Well, thank you, our listener, and all of our friends, Randy, Greg, Christina, for joining us on another episode of Sip and Saga Society. If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to support our historical endeavors, please tell a friend about our show or give us a follow on our socials at sipandsaga_society or visit our website sipandsaga.online where we also have merch and membership opportunities and a book club.
Book club.
Well, thank you, Randy, for that. That was beautiful. And thank you for listening. But for now, we gotta go. So goodbye.
Bye.
Hasta.
That was a good episode, Randy. What a reasonable length.